So critical race theory started and is perpetuated by the university system, the higher education system. It started in law schools back in the 1970s. We could argue that it started before that, coming from the Frankfurt School, all that. That's not the discussion I want to have today. The point I have is that it is started and is perpetuated in our higher education system and has slowly, over time, worked its way into younger and younger and younger and younger grade levels, where I truly believe the final frontier of the battle for critical race theory, the linchpin of this entire affair, is in the K through 12 schools. Now, I have argued that critical race theory really doesn't actually have a whole heck of a lot to do with race at all once we dig down deep and look at the different layers that are going on in the overall problem. I believe that critical race theory is specifically designed in order to destabilize the system, in order to drag all of us kicking and screaming through a cultural revolution in this country. I think it's already started, and I think if more and more people don't start waking up and fighting back, particularly in the K through 12 public schools, we're going to have a big problem on our hands. And I'm going to explain why in this video, and it starts with this article by Politico about basically how the Democrats are well aware that they are losing political ground in the fight against critical race theory. Democrats are scared. Democrats lose ground on school equity plans. Moderate and suburban voters share concerns about education changes and say national Democrats dismiss their arguments. But it's not even that the National Democrats are dismissing their arguments. The National Democrats are continuing to perpetuate this ideology in K through 12 schools, doing everything that they can to cement it in public education. Now, one of the reasons that public education at the K through 12 level is different than at the university level is because your children are compelled to go to school. They have to go to school. They have to be in school. The state compels children to be in school, and 90% of those children who are compelled to be in school are in the public schools in this country. And the public schools are teaching critical race theory in practice, or praxis, as James Lindsay might say. They're teaching it as young as 4 years old in pre-K. Now, this is freaking a lot of people out, and rightfully so. If we do not figure out the public school situation, either by drastically changing the way we do public education in this country or just defunding them entirely and letting the free market take hold, I think that we're going to have a little bit of a problem. Let's just take a look. Elena Kaplan is a kind of suburban mom who made Joe Biden president, an immigrant who came to the United States from the Soviet Union. She is a registered Democrat from San Mateo County, California, and she's alarmed over her state's new model ethnic studies curriculum, which cites critical race theory as a key theoretical framework and pedagogy. I thought they weren't teaching critical race theory in schools. What happened there? I firmly believe that if the vast majority of Californians and Americans knew about this and about this type of content in our curriculum, this would not be happening. We would not be having this conversation. And, she's probably right. But the thing I want to talk about today is how the Democrats are trying to weaponize the youth of the country in order to support their little cultural revolution. And we know that it is an unpopular thing in the polls, and we're going to look at a couple different resources about that. But before we get into that, just a quick reminder that I do content almost every single day of the week on this channel, or I will be now that I have finally finished my book. And I do content around critical race theory, the woke ideology, news, politics, culture, really anything that I find interesting on any given day. If you'd like to take this ride with me, please make sure you are subscribed to the channel. If you're subscribed to the channel, please make sure you have notifications turned on. And if you don't see content from me from a day or two, just check back because there's probably more content that YouTube hasn't served you. Another way you can support my work is by joining my Locals community. Locals, where I will never be censored or shadow banned or any of those things. It is the best place on the internet. You can actually join my Locals for free, kb.locals.com. The information is right down there somewhere. But if you want to support the work I'm doing, the very best thing you can do is to become a paid supporter on my Locals, because not only does it help me out, It also makes sure you get access to the full set of features on Locals. You can comment on posts, you can participate in our Zoom calls that we do every week, you can do our book club, we have a debate club coming up this Saturday. We got all sorts of fun things going on for local supporters exclusively there. You'll get access to my Discord, which I just launched, or actually some of my Locals members launched it for me, and I'm still figuring it out. I don't understand Discord all that well, but they're going to teach me, and we're all organizing this in my Locals. So you can do $5 a month, less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks, or if you're feeling really spicy, you can do $50 for a year, which gives you 2 months off. All right, let's dig back into this. On a national level, Democrats have insisted that the brush fires over critical race theory, which have become a political punching bag even for unrelated equity initiatives. Anytime you see the word equity, you have to think critical race theory. Equity does not exist without critical race theory. The two need to be interchangeable so far as you're concerned. Are largely the work of right-wing activists who willfully misrepresent what it means, and they blame Fox News for fanning parents' anger. That's another right-wing conspiracy that's totally made up by Donald Trump and the Republican candidate for governor, Glenn Youngkin, says Virginia gubernatorial candidate Terry McAuliffe in June. Terry McAuliffe doesn't know what the F he's talking about. But this is the quote that I was really interested in from Jen Psaki. I don't think we should think that educating the youth and next and future leaders of this country on systemic racism is indoctrination. Huh. Okay, Jen. All right. Let's take a look at this. This was a tweet sent to me this morning from Lily Tang Williams. Lily Tang Williams is an activist who grew up in China during the Cultural Revolution. She lives in New Hampshire with me. I've had her on this channel before. Go check out that chat if you haven't seen it. And she sent me this tweet this morning. This equity conference was attended by my district's equity and inclusion coordinator. Notice the armed revolutionaries on their welcome slide and the greeting, "Hi, comrades. Radical racialism and communism have come to our schools. This is why I fight." This was sent by a school equity coordinator. Again, anytime you hear the word equity, you have to think critical race theory. They're the same thing. I have a school board meeting on my second channel, Actively Unwoke, and one of the clips I have on there actually has the principal telling this group of parents who are really pissed off. He's like, we're not doing critical race theory in our schools. We're just doing equity. It's the same thing. You cannot do one without the other. Equity in the context that they use it is exclusively in the realm of the woke. So check this out. National Equity Project, the Learn Network, EOY convening, I don't know what any of that means, May 12th, 2021. Welcome to the end of year youth takeover. That looks a little bit Marxist, if I'm not going to lie. And then, oh, here we go here. Hi, friends and comrades. Okay, let's talk about the weaponization of youth, shall we? And I want to turn to this role about the role of the youth in China's Cultural Revolution. Because, listen, sometimes I feel like when I get up in the morning, I'm a little bit crazy when I think about how our country is in the midst of a cultural revolution, but that is exactly what's happening. Critical race theory, the woke ideology, the entire goal is to destabilize the system. That's all it is. And they latch on to race because race is particularly effective at riling people up, pissing people off, getting them to basically pull down the system around them in the name of justice and equity and systemic racism and all these things. But the real goal is right here. It's cultural revolution in this country. This piece will show you how the youth played a significant role in the Cultural Revolution in China from 1966 to 1976. China's leader during that time, Mao Zedong, installed a revolutionary spirit in the youth, largely based on the Mao Zedong thought and the ideology of socialist realism. A prominent feature of the Cultural Revolution was propaganda, which was a cultural means to promote Communist Party ideology to the masses. Firstly, forms like propaganda like posters, songs, and artwork featured imagery of the youth and depicted them as a strong revolutionary force. Visual propaganda during this period has certain characteristics so that they could appeal to the masses. Secondly, the youth also had positive reactions to propaganda as they remember the Cultural Revolution as a time they had a collective shared identity. Third, the youth were heavily involved in the Cultural Revolution at the grassroots level, leading the revolution in a bottom-up manner. Look at that picture. Look at that picture. Does that look similar to you? Welcome to the end of year youth takeover. Let's continue in this article. Following Maoist ideology, the role of the youth was a theme has been emphasized in propaganda posters from the Cultural Revolution. The model citizens were usually the youth, workers, or peasants, and were often smiling and had courageous postures, conveying that partaking in the revolution should be a joyous affair, though which they could exhibit their hard work for the sake of their country. Because high productivity was one of the objectives of the Cultural Revolution, youths were portrayed to be energetic, enthusiastic, full of life, and hopeful. As a result, the people who viewed the posters may feel inspired to do their part in the revolution. The youth also reacted positively to the propaganda produced during this decade and felt inspired by them. Posters helped them to construct the identities of young Chinese people who matured during the Cultural Revolution and shaped their worldview. According to Gang, popular propagandists depicted Mao as the protector of China. The protector of China. I wonder how Joe Biden is being protected these days. Do you remember the photo at the day before the inauguration where Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were in front of the mall, and they had the big I don't even know what it's called, the water, the fountain, whatever it is, and they said it looks like Joe Biden is reaching out and hugging America, extending his arms to embrace America. That picture was all over the media. Similarly, youth and other forms of propaganda that was easily accessible to the masses because it was frequently broadcast on radio and television. Songs were memorable to the youth. Music triggered certain feelings and responses in its listeners. The main themes of the Cultural Revolution were praise, battle, revolution, and for the love of country. The songs conveyed fundamentally patriotic nationalistic messages about everlasting faith and commitment to the country and to Mao. Likewise, the song's targets towards the youth were instilled with Maoist ideology, as they were meant to inspire them with revolutionary fervor. From the onset of the Cultural Revolution, Mao encouraged the youth to be politically active, and partake in revolts to purge the bourgeoisie capitalists. Let's read that sentence again, shall we? From the onset of the Cultural Revolution, Mao encouraged the youth to be particularly active and partake in revolts to purge the bourgeoisie capitalists, thereby directly serving the aims of the movement. In elite schools and universities across the country, students grouped together to form the Red Guards and went against authorities who they perceived to have bourgeoisie mindsets. The students were of Red family origin, meaning that they were the children of working class people and Communist Party cadres from the pre-liberation period before the Chinese Communist Revolution of 1949 that established the People's Republic of China. For example, students at one university that I'm not going to pronounce became Red Guards and enthusiastically participated in the movement. The movement enabled them to display their passion and knowledge of Maoist ideology in a group effort. Propaganda posters were also used in this context to inspire the youth to directly participate in the movement, and heavy emphasis on bold, red, black colors. Red and black, who else wears red and black? Red Guards openly criticized teachers and administrators in school settings as they intended to purge them of their bourgeoisie thoughts. Authorities were accused of enrolling students in non-revolutionary backgrounds who could become resistant force during the Cultural Revolution. The youth were a politically active as rebellious force supporting and serving Mao by calling out those who did not follow Maoist ideology. This is describing to you exactly how China weaponized the youth during the Cultural Revolution. And you change just a few words and descriptors in this paragraph, and you could have exactly what the White House and Jen Psaki and Joe Biden and the Democratic Party and the progressive left are doing and have been doing for the past 40, 50 years to the youth in this country. It's exactly the same thing. This is why this is a problem, folks. This is why we need to stop focusing on things that don't matter, like if Simone Biles dropped out of the Olympics, and we need to get in the game because we're in a cultural revolution in this country. I do not care anymore if you are Democrat or conservative or libertarian or whatever you happen to be. I do not care anymore. The only thing that matters is who is actually willing to step up, to fight back, to speak up, to go get on your school board, to go get elected to office, to go champion laws, to go speak to parent groups, form support groups, form little groups where you can fight back in your community. There are any number of things that people can do, but we've got to start getting in the game, and we've got to stop thinking about this in terms of tribalism. There are people on the right that are against this. There are also people on the left that are against this, and I truly believe that the only way that we are going to even have a remote chance of winning this battle is if we wake more people on the left up. They have got to see what is happening, and I think a lot of them are starting to, at least according to this article in Politico, which is not exactly a right-wing publication. But these Democrats appear to be underestimating parents' anger in places where critical race theory is top of mind. Objection to new equity plans are not the sole province of conservatives, but extend to many moderate and independent voters, according to Politico interviews with school board members, political operatives and activists in Democratic and left-leaning communities, including Northern Virginia's suburbs of Washington, D.C., Palm Beach County, Florida, New York's Westchester County, Maricopa County, covering Arizona, and suburban Detroit. Parents who are showing up at school board meetings and have helped launch a spat of recall elections say they are angry about a host of issues, including what they see as a myopic focus on diversity at school boards, ongoing frustration over a year of closed schools, and lesson plans that they say are becoming too progressive too fast. While these complaints have often been branded in the media as anti-critical race theory, the causes of the anger are varied and are being ignored, parents say. We've got to start red-pilling more people on the left, guys. And when you red-pill people on the left, we generally know how to fight back. And we genuinely are not afraid to do so. So this is the environment that we're in. That's what I think we need to do. But I do believe we have numbers on our side. Chris Rufo actually sent out an email today with new polling basically saying that the American public does not like critical race theory. So we are on the right track. But this is the long battle. This is not going to be over with laws. This is not going to be over with legislation. The cultural revolution is about culture. It's not about laws. And the left still has a whole lot more power than we do. And this is what they're trying to do right here. They're using it as a guide, and they're winning. So, time to speak up. Time to start getting in the game. If you want to join a supportive community that will help you do that, we talk about this in my locals all the time. So come on, join us, kb.locals.com. Information's down there somewhere. That's all I've got for right now. I'll see you soon.